we'll just continue with our webinar. So welcome. My name is Ben Gromyko. I am from InterNACHI. InterNACHI is the International Association of Certified Home Inspectors. And we do a monthly free webinar for home inspectors. And if you wanted to see the recording of this webinar in a couple days, it'll be at this URL, nachi.org/webinar. And again, my name is Ben Gromyko. You can find my contact information as well as everyone at InterNACHI's at nachi.org, if you ever need anything, /contact. So I hope you all are still with us. We had a GoToWebinar meltdown. It just stopped for us on our end. And I think it was because we have so many people registering and attending. So right now we have about 550 people online. We had 1,700 registered, and we had a bit of a delay, so I apologize for that. For about 15 minutes, the system went down. So we have a home inspection business course. Before we get to the roof inspection training, we just came out with a home inspection business course, and it's at this URL, nachi.org, if you wanted to go to it, /go/3. And it's free and open to everyone. We also have everything you need to be a successful home inspector all in one place. And it's at nachi.org/everything. And we also have, I wanted to tell you, a new article about what makes you so special. It's really about branding and marketing that brand. What makes you different from your competition? And so we give you a few tools to look at. InterNACHI provides a lot of things to its members for free to help them promote their business and market themselves. So let's begin. A couple things. I can't hear you. You should be able to hear me. I can't see you, but you should be able to still see me. Hopefully you're still there. Brad says I'm echoing. Yep. Well, at least you can hear me and see me. At least we're connected this time. Hopefully we won't get logged off again. Lewis is from Puerto Rico, so we have different places around the globe attending. And Michael says the audio is working. Chris says it's good. Jeffrey says it's good. Okay, so you can hear me. Now, if you wanted to ask questions before, during, or after the webinar, on the right side of your panel is a control panel. You type in your questions and you hit send, and I'll be able to see them and I'll be able to take questions every once in a while. But let's begin. Thanks to you for being here. We're going to go over how to inspect a roof, and we're going to concentrate on asphalt shingle roofs because most roofs on residential homes are of asphalt shingles, and so we're going to stick to that. And what I usually do is think of the SOP before I get up on a roof and I go up on a roof. That exceeds the SOP. I think about what is required of me from the standards of practice point of view. And InterNACHI's SOP is at internachi.org/SOP. And it is, remember, a minimum standard. That is what you are required to do at the least. You are not required to get up on any roof, but I do. And that was part of my branding that I beat my competitors at. I carry tall ladders on big trucks, and I got up on just about every roof. I was trained to do so. I was a builder before I became a home inspector. So I was trained and very comfortable in doing that. Never had any problems. And I use safety equipment. So the first thing that I do when I get up near the roof edge is to count the number of layers. And one of the things that I do a lot also is take a lot of pictures. So you'll be seeing a lot of pictures of my roof inspections. But the first thing I do before I get up on it is try to identify the number of layers of shingles on the roof. Ideally, I don't want to see more than 2. If I see 2, that could be allowed by the jurisdiction. Ideally, the best practice is to rip off the bottom layer and put a new layer on. But if there's 2 layers, then 2 things come to mind. Fasteners, the fasteners have to be long enough to go through the number of layers and penetrate into the deck sheathing. And second thing is flashing. Usually when I see 2 layers of asphalt shingles on a roof, there's going to be a flashing problem. Usually. So I take pictures. There's 2 layers. And then I walk around on the roof. Again, the standards of practice does not require a home inspector to walk upon any roof. You don't have to. But I do. It's a preference. It's also part of my ability to provide a really good service, that what I thought was a really good service. So I walk around to make sure that there are no major problems. So let's go through a bunch of pictures of a roof inspection, and then we'll go over some technical aspects of the 10 steps to perform a roof inspection. So obviously, you can see quickly that there's a flashing problem around the roof vents. The passive roof vents have flashing problems. I mean, that is a sloppy installation. There's a patchwork. It's really a Band-Aid. So the shingles look great. 3 tab shingles. In my inspection reports, I identify the type of shingles. Those are 3 tab. And I take a look at every plane or every roof surface of the roof system. And I see already that there's some problems. We have some shingles that are missing. That's the rear porch roof, a metal porch roof. So I have 4 shingles on the top roof, the upper roof. There's 1, exposed fasteners. You should never see an exposed fastener at nail head. 2, 3, the third one, they got the shingle tab that must have cracked and blown off because the shingles are a little bit old, 15 years old, a little bit brittle, some erosion. And they nailed it back in place so that you have actually roof fasteners, heads that are exposed. There's the 4th area. So I'm walking around, and one of the reasons that I walk around is I want to feel the substrate. I'm going to inspect the roof if I can, if I have access from underneath to look at the wood planks or the plywood sheathing or OSB and look for wood problems, structural problems. But if I can feel with my feet and with my hands the actual structure of the roof, I'm going to actually take pictures that I'm looking at it, and I want to feel how it's, because the one thing that a shingle roof needs is a good substrate. And I just can't tell that from the ground, so I want to go up. And the shingle edges tell you a lot too. I look for granular erosion on the edges. And this is an older roof. The granules are still there. Still functional. They're lying flat. They're adhering to each other. You got some moss because of the shade of the trees. But it's basically in pretty good shape. Then I look for, so that's the roof areas, the planes, the surfaces. Now I look for penetrations, and we've got several different kinds of penetrations. Anything that comes up through the roof, shingles, is a penetration. This is a stack penetration, and that flashing is actually installed upside down. It's conical, right? And so the boot actually should have a longer, like apron kind of formation going downhill. The flashing around the roof vents, they seem to be newer vents, but the flashing wasn't installed, so we have a flashing problem. It looks like the roof vent was just installed right on top of the asphalt shingles. So it's a Band-Aid area. It's probably leaking. There's the chimney stack. Now this is an older house with a relatively newer shingle, 15-year shingle, and they used to fake the masonry. This isn't a masonry stack. It's actually a siding piece made out of cement with probably some asbestos in it. And I look at the condition of the chimney while I'm up on a roof because other systems, the heating system, fireplace system, are connected to the roof system, so I can't separate the two. But while I'm up on the roof system, inspecting that, I'm going to inspect the other things. And while I'm up on the roof, I'm going to inspect the flashing around all the penetrations, including the chimney. So I'm going to look for apron flashing, backer flashing, step flashing, counter flashing. The step flashing here, I can't even see. There's some sealant applied, and there's moss. So now I know that there's water stuck in that area, and it's been sealed up, and that's just a Band-Aid. It's probably not, the step flashing was probably not pulled out and reinstalled with the upper layer. Take pictures of the gutters. That forces me also to look at the extension of the shingle. The shingle tab should hang over a little bit, maybe 1/4 of an inch over the drip edge. And it's not. It actually has a problem here where roof water running off the roof will go into the seam in between the tabs and go behind the drip edge, which was installed for the second layer. So this second layer really wasn't installed very well. And part of the gutters need to be cleaned. And obviously the loose, detached, cracked shingles need to be repaired. Now this area here where there's a vertical surface of the siding meeting the front porch roof, it's called an apron flashing. And this apron flashing was actually not installed. It's installed with the lower layer of shingles, but not with the upper layer. And so this is the lower layer, and I'm walking on the lower layer of shingles. And I'm looking at the step flashing. Step flashing is flashing pieces of metal where there's a roof intersection with a wall, and it's stepped. It could be around any kind of chimney or skylight, step flashing. And this step flashing was not installed with this second newer layer of shingles on top. So it's prone to water penetration. The step flashing is installed, but it's with the lower layer. So it's missing there. And then part of the roof system are the gutters and downspouts. The downspouts were not diverting water away from the house. It's puddling up at the porch. This porch roof, the metal porch roof, the gutters were actually filled with little trees. So it's really having a lot of problems diverting the water away from the house. It has problems with water penetration coming in through the materials, not flashed properly, and it's not diverting water away from the house. So we need a roofer here. And when I went into the basement, unfortunately there was a crawl space. There was evidence of flooding. There's mud on the floor. There's active water penetration. There's insulation hanging down because the crawl space has been humid and damp. There's wood lying on the floor, attracting wood-destroying organisms. And it's wet on the wall edges, and there's mud. So there's the attic space. A couple of people are asking questions. Looks like you can all hear me. So this is the attic space of this roof. I need to inspect the roof from underneath. I need to take a look at the structure according to the standards of practice. So I go up into the attic space. I try to crawl in the attic space if I can. If I can't, well, I'm going to take pictures from the access. This is a truss-built roof, as you can see, 2x8s on the rafters and truss-built everywhere else. I take a measurement. You need to approximate the depth of the type of insulation. This is fiberglass batt insulation, about 10 inches thick. That used to be a penetration, I think, for the bathroom fan, but they blocked it off. There's water stains coming from the chimney stack. That's a bit of a concern. There's signs of other water penetration, so I want to take a look at those things. If I have a moisture meter, I'll use it, but I really don't have to. I'm assuming there are roof problems. We need a roofer. We have areas of potential water entry points that need to be attended to. So these watermarks just make a lot of sense. I'm going to mark it as a potential active water penetration problem. So there's that area there. There's the insulation. The other roof structure looks pretty good. There's the bathroom fan. And I think it was exhausting through the roof, but they disconnected it for some reason. So that's no good. You need to exhaust all the vents, kitchen, bathroom, dryer especially, outside, directly outside. And I used infrared, so I found some missing insulation, and the ceiling was actually hot in a lot of areas. You can tell some squares were actually missing. There's that. Very hot there. So let's do another set of inspection pictures real quick. And I'm trying to make up time. We had about 15 minutes when the system was actually down, and I had to log out and log back in and call GoToWebinar, make sure everything was okay. And then we'll review the 10 steps to perform a roof inspection. That's kind of like the technical stuff. So let's do another inspection of the roof system. And as you can tell, as you do an inspection of the roof system, there are other systems that are interdependent, right? They're connected to each other. The plumbing system, where the vent stacks come up through the roof, that's connected. The laundry where the dryer exhausts through the roof, that could be up through the roof, and that could be connected to the roof system. When you're on the roof system, you're taking a look at maybe a heating system, exhaust pipe, a vent pipe, a chimney stack, gutters, downspouts. So now you're talking about water, exterior. So a lot of things are connected to the roof system. That's why it's almost impossible to separate these systems. A house is a system of interdependent parts. So I like to take a look at if I'm going up on the eaves side, look for a drip edge. In this area, in this jurisdiction, a drip edge was not required, but I like to take a look at the number of layers and maybe the thickness of the plywood and how the gutter is attached to the soffit fascia. There's the chimney stack for the fuel burning appliance. And again, I like to walk on the roof, take a look at the structure, see how it feels, literally. There's a vent stack near the edge. I can't really get to it, but it looks okay. It looks like some sealant there. But I can see that the gutter is filled with debris, so it needs to be cleaned. The collar and the flashing looks okay. Dissimilar metals will make some of the chimney parts, of the metal chimney parts, corrode and rust. If you have dissimilar metals, galvanized and stainless steel connecting to each other, sometimes somebody will put a metal screw into somewhere. Or it could be the heat. So this is the heat coming out of this area and billowing out. So the collars look pretty good. I identified the type of venting. So we have soffit and ridge vent, ideally. The flashing around the pipes are okay, except I really don't like the exposed fasteners because it wasn't installed really well with the shingles. The shingles should be right down here. So they had to keep that flap down, and so they decided to put some nails in. Well, at least seal it up if you're going to do that. Gutters are filled with little green trees. They need to be cleaned. There's part of, I guess it's an architectural design not to have a gutter in this small area. However, as you can see, the fascia is bubbling out and the water is probably curling around the shingle and just going right behind there. So I identified that as a potential water problem. Somebody needs to take a look at that fascia, pull it off, and see if there's any wood rot or water penetration, and then install a gutter. Again, when you have a vertical part of the siding connecting to the shingle roof, there should be apron flashing there, and there is. It was installed. You can visually see that. You'll typically see it because it comes out, and then they'll put some shingle tabs on top. And then I look at the downspouts and see if they're diverting water away from the house. And these downspouts are doing okay. Remember, this was a townhouse community, a row of townhouses. So in between, there's a firewall. When I look in the attic space, I want to confirm that there's a firewall, something masonry or fire rated. This is truss built. Can't modify any trusses in the field after it's been installed. If it is, you need a structural analysis. So it's truss built. Looking at the structure, looking for watermarks. I see a bit of a watermark there, maybe something in the past. No mold, nothing damaged. Some watermarks again near the ridge. There's the vent pipe going up through. Chimney stack. Looking down through the floor of the attic, and that is a chase that's open. There's two things wrong here. There's a couple of things wrong. One, it's a huge energy loss. This is not insulated. These are the studs of the second floor. They're not insulated. And so there's energy loss coming through here. There's heat. There's a lot of air. There's a lot of air, and this is not mold. This is insulation with black stuff on it. As the air comes up through this chase, it's carrying dirt, and that's what that is. So there's dirt on the insulation. That's from a stack effect. Whenever you have air escaping from a house, you have energy escaping. You have literally money blowing out into the attic. So you need to cap this off. And it needs to be a fire, like a metal plate here, this fire wall, fire break. And it's a safety hazard because if I was in the attic, I wasn't paying attention, I could step right through and find myself on the second floor real quick. So there you go. And there's ductwork right there. So this is a supply duct. and it's not insulated, and it's not sealed. So it's a huge energy loss. Don't have to be a certified energy auditor to fix that. You don't need a blower door to identify that problem, just to be a trained home inspector. There's some insulation that's been pulled back for some reason. So missing insulation areas. There's storage in the attic, inside the truss-built roof structure, and the storage is on plywood, lying on the bottom cord of the roof truss. And the bottom cord of this roof truss is 3.5 inches. That means this entire section of the attic has squished the 10 inches thick of insulation down to 3.5 inches. So there's a huge energy loss here. There's a huge open chase. There's compressed insulation, and there's a pull-down attic stairs that's not insulated. There's the vent pipe from the bathroom blowing out the side of the house. Looks like, it's a dryer vent because there's lint all over the place. That's right. So it's been cleaned up too. And the seams are not tight. So it could discharge into the attic. And maybe they opened it up because it was clogged. And it should be wrapped up, sealed, and insulated. There's a lot of disturbed insulation in the attic. And there's the attic access, the pull-down stairs. They were installed after the house was built by the homeowner in the hallway. And to install it, they cut the trusses. So the bottom cords of the trusses have been cut. And this is a modification of a truss in the field. And that requires a structural engineer. That's what I recommend in my reports. The truss has been modified, and that's not allowed by any standard unless it's been signed off by a structural engineer or someone qualified to do that. And it wasn't. So let's get to the technical stuff. I'm looking at the questions. Yep, before I cut out, I'll answer some questions if we have time. Ice dams, we'll look at some ice dams next, Matt. The insulation in the crawl space was installed backwards. Yeah, there's a lot of things wrong with that crawl space. The insulation wasn't installed backwards. Vapor barriers should be towards the living space. And there's a few things, depending on where you are geographically in the United States, where that isn't so. So you need to watch where your vapor barriers are. Down south, hot, humid. Watch where the vapor barriers are. Would you recommend? So is the drip edge required? Justin asks. In some local, think of your local code when you make those recommendations. There are national recommendations and best practices. Drip edges, we like them. So we want to have drip edges. That's what we teach at InterNACHI. A lot of people are asking about the drip edge. So we'll get to the drip edges. Okay, so let's go to the technical steps, the 10 steps. And here they are. 10 steps to perform a roof inspection. Hope you all can still hear me. Yes, very good. So they are, check the roof covering, which is really what the standards of practice is all about. It's all about the roof covering and the structure underneath. Everything after this is beyond the standards of practice, so don't get too upset. So you can follow the standards of practice and do a fantastic home inspection. But we're going to learn a little bit more. We're going to learn a few more steps if you wanted to take it a little bit more. And a lot of this stuff far exceeds the standards of practice, especially since you can't even see the fasteners on most instances, except for that first house. Remember, we saw fasteners. The third step is to check the deck sheathing. Fourth is check the slope and underlayment. Fifth step is to check the ice barrier, then the drip edge, an offset pattern. Shingles should not be installed on top of each other. Roof valley flashing, that's important. That's usually where I walk up to inspect a roof because it's a lower slope. And check the nail penetration into the deck sheathing. That has to be secured and all the way through, or at least all the way into it. And check the flashing areas. And we've done some of that already. And remember, the standards of practice is a minimum. So step one, check the roof covering. Determine if the roof is designed to be a weather barrier. It's supposed to protect the interior structure from water intrusion and water damage, right? That's pretty basic. That's why I like to get up on every plane and take a look at the surface of the roof. And it's the roof covering that I'm inspecting. I like to not say that the roof system is performing well, because the system involves everything, all the things that we're talking about. So when you're looking at the roof covering, identify it as the roof covering. Okay. Building codes don't address the details of how to install the roofing materials. They're really absent of that. What they really do is just divert it up to the manufacturer's recommendations, right? So if you look at the code, how do you install 3-tab shingles? It's really up to the manufacturer's recommendations on how to install it. The best practice is a second roof layer shouldn't be installed without removing first the existing layer. So remember, I had 2 layers there. We had a lot of problems. A second layer was installed. It was allowed by the authority having jurisdiction, but it had a lot of problems, especially the flashing. And I think the fasteners weren't installed well because a lot of the shingles were blown off. So step 2 is check the fasteners. And there's good fastening and bad fastening. It's almost impossible to see the fasteners during a typical home inspection. In fact, I don't even lift the shingles up to look for the fasteners unless there's a problem. But there's a few things you should know. This is ideally what a good fastener looks like, right? It's on the top. It's not squished in. It's not lifted up, and it penetrates the substrate, the roof deck. This is a roofing nail that's sticking up. That's not good. This is a roofing nail that has been compressed into the material. That's not good. It's damaged and cracked the material. And this is at an angle. Those are bad. So here's a roofing nail that's sticking up. I see that a lot. It's just, the guys are firing the gun a lot, and sometimes it's not all the way connected flat to the surface. That's overdriven. Maybe the air compressor is pumped up too much. The gauge to the gun. There's a minimum of 4 fasteners per shingle. That's a 3-tab shingle there. If you're in a high wind area, 6 fasteners per shingle was used in those locations below the sealant strip. And fasteners should never be visibly exposed or weathered. They shouldn't appear in that 5-inch exposure area. So report it as a potential water entry point and recommend correction and further evaluation. So remember that first house roof that I was on? They put a shingle tab back in place, and they just simply nailed it in place with all these exposed fasteners. That's not allowed. Step 3 is to determine if the roof is solidly sheathed. It can get technical and exhaustive, but as a home inspector, we don't have to go that far. We can just stick to the SOP. But there are a couple things you should know. Shingles require a solid surface. Number 1, that makes sense. And if the roof is not solidly sheathed, the shingles would not provide a proper, correct protection from the weather. So it needs a nice, good, solid sheathing. And so that's why I personally, not you, walk up on a roof. It's one of the benefits of walking up on the roof that I felt was an advantage to my clients. So you're not required, again, to walk up on any roof surface according to the standards of practice. But the sheathing should be fastened with a minimum of 8 penny nail, common nails, spaced 6 inches apart. You're not going to be able to see this really unless you're doing a staged or a new construction inspection. There should be a bit of a space between the panel edges and ends. The sheathing should be installed. The plywood should be in planks should be installed perpendicular to the supports. So if these are the rafters, it should be installed this way. So in this case, you can see that there are plywood sheathing going this way, right, across the rafters. You probably all know that. Sometimes I found that they didn't install it properly and you sink in. There could be spacers installed. So here's a picture from that first roof inspection that we already went over. There's a spacer there, a clip. Step 3 still, the end joints of each adjacent piece of decking should be staggered just like a rows of shingles, asphalt shingles. They should be staggered, shouldn't be on top of each other. And the 4 most common sheathing attachment mistakes include using the wrong size fasteners, missing framing members when installing the fasteners. The nails are just right, they nick the rafter board. Overdriving the nails, so the nails are overdriven and crack the surface of the plywood, and that weakens it. The nail head needs to actually hold it down. And using too many or too few fasteners. You would think using a lot of fasteners would be good, but actually it damages the material and weakens it. The slope and underlayment are related to each other. One determines the other. The slope determines a lot of things. The type of roof covering material that's used, and the type and location of the underlayment. And underlayment does 3 things. It provides protection from the weather while the house is being built, while the roof is being installed. It provides a secondary weatherproofing barrier in case the shingles or roofing covering has a problem and it leaks. The underlayment helps that. And it separates the roof covering from the substrate. And there's a single layer typical underlayment installed. It's got those cap nails to hold it down. You can classify underlayment in 3 ways. Essentially, there's a single layer of underlayment, a single layer of self-adhering underlayment, that's that ice and water shield, that sticky stuff, and a double layer of underlayment. Basically, in those 3 ways, you can classify underlayment. And for roof slopes at 412 or greater, there should be a minimum single layer underlayment applied. For lower slope roofs, so you got to get a feel for it, or you can take a measurement. I have an app on my iPhone that you can lay the iPhone on the side, on the roof, and it'll tell you the slope. So if it feels a little bit low, then it's okay to have shingles, but some extra caution, some extra insulation of underlayment, special installation of underlayment needs to be installed. Step 5, check the ice barrier. And ice, a lot of people are logging in from the south and from warm locations like Hawaii. So in a lot of places have ice. Like right now, almost the entire country of the United States has snow and ice on it. And like we said before, icicles, we were talking about icicles. That's a good indication that there's energy, warm air passing up through the roof, up into the attic space, through the house, air leakage, carrying that warm air. We saw that with that chase, remember that open chase? And it warms the snow on the roof. The water drips down to the eave where it's cold, it freezes again, and it could cause an ice dam, and that water keeps damming up. And so it needs a ice and water shield. In certain areas of the country that have an average temperature in January of 30 degrees Fahrenheit or less, you need a water and ice dam protection membrane. That's that single layer membrane. And there, we in our studios, we set up a roof. We built a roof and took some pictures. So that's that self-adhering membrane, that single layer. And there's a good picture of Owens Corning, makes a good barrier. And it's got that sticky stuff on the side. And so you put half of it down and flip it and take the other half off. And remember, this underlayment at the eaves, at the gutter edge, the underlayment goes over the drip edge. So the drip edge and then the underlayment is applied. So check the drip edge. It should be installed at the rakes and eaves. And there's some shapes of some different drip edges. And there's 5 things that are important to know about drip edges. The installation and the type of material usually depends on where you are in the country, the local practices. And the drip edge at the rake, that's the edge of the roof, the sloped edge. That's the rake. It goes over the underlayment. So the underlayment is installed on the plywood deck, and on the rake, the drip edge goes over the underlayment. So there's a picture there. There's the drip edge, and it goes over the underlayment material on the rake edge, on the sloped edge. And there's a picture of me lifting some shingles on the edge, taking a look at the drip edge, and you can see all the materials you need. You need to see the drip edge, the shingles, the layer of shingles, and the underlayment, and the underlayment location in relation to the drip edge. Third thing is, number 3 down there, the drip edge at the eaves, the gutter, goes under the underlayment, like that. So there's the drip edge, the white material, goes under the underlayment. So if there's shingles applied, just get your thumb, lift it up a little bit. You can see the underlayment, you can see the drip edge, you can see the location of these things. Number 4, the drip edge should be fastened well, every 12 inches normally, high winds, maybe every 6 inches. And a recommended best practice is to have the shingles at the gutter extend over the drip edge to get that just a little bit, like 1/4 of an inch. Step 7 of the asphalt shingles, there's 3 more steps, hang in there. The shingles should be offset. You shouldn't have rows of shingles on top of each other, ending on top of each other. So there should be stepped, right? And there's different ways. There's a 6-inch pattern, there's a 5-inch pattern. There's a starter strip. Sometimes you'll see a starter strip, right? That you should on modern laminated shingles. And then the shingle goes on top of that starter strip. So for asphalt shingle roofs, step 8, there's 3 basic types of valley flashing. There's open, closed cut, and woven. Open is open, they don't touch each other. Woven is woven in, and closed cut is the other one. Step 9, check the nail penetration into the deck sheathing. My concern is when I have 2 layers of shingles, that nail has to go all the way into that substrate. And usually it doesn't. If the sheathing is 3/4 of an inch or less, I want to see those nail heads pop through on the other side. So here is that first roof that we were inspecting with the double layers. I see a lot of nails popping through. So I know that that second layer was probably nailed well. It's just in some of those locations, it seems like the shingles just blew off. And here's a picture, an illustration from our gallery to describe to your client what a nail penetration is. This is going through 2 layers of asphalt shingles, and it's not penetrating all the way into the sheathing. So that's a problem. And there are step 10, last step of the technical ways to inspect a roof. There are 4 types of flashing. There's penetration flashing, anything that penetrates the roof covering. There's vertical surface flashing. There's skylight flashings, the same as the chimney flashings, and steep to low slope transition flashings, usually different types of materials. Low slope roofing material, transition to a conventional slope asphalt shingle roof. And vertical flashings, we've already saw that in a lot of apron stuff. And there's different kinds of penetration flashings. Excuse me. Penetration, that flashing there is installed actually upside down. That flashing, we already saw these pictures, was not installed from our first roof, was not installed properly, obviously. This is from our, I think, our first or second roof, where we already saw this step flashing wasn't installed properly. So there are 4 types of vertical surface flashing, and that's when you have something vertical, right, coming into contact with the roof. So vertical flashing, and you have an apron. I wear a barbecue apron, right, when I'm in summertime when I'm grilling. So apron, think of it as apron in front of you, and it goes down and away. That's the apron flashing. Step flashing is on the sides, right? It steps up. Cricket or backer flashing, and counter flashing kind of it covers the step flashing, covers the other types of flashing. It's usually installed on a masonry chimney stack and a skylight. So there's some illustrations you can find in our gallery. These are free illustrations. We have hundreds of really good illustrations for your report to upload into your report. They're free. Just go to nachi.org/gallery. If you can't remember all these URLs, I'll have this slideshow available. So apron, I already told you what an apron flashing is. It's this, where you have, this is the bird's eye view of the siding coming down, and that's the front porch roof coming up, and there's the apron flashing in between. Step flashing, the steps with every course. Remember that we already saw this picture. This step flashing wasn't installed properly. That step flashing area there, where a vertical surface is meeting the roof. Step flashing and counter flashing, you'll find that on a lot of times with masonry chimney stacks or masonry walls. Cricket or backer flashing is when the roof intersects a chimney or a curbed roof penetration like a skylight. And that's on the back. And when for example, when a chimney is very wide, when a chimney is very wide, you need some type of flashing. You can't have just backer flashing. You need a cricket on the wide chimneys. And the counter flashing just covers everything. And skylights have them all. So skylights have the apron, the step, the backer, and the counter flashing is typically the skylight itself. So in detail, there's the backer flashing, right? It's the top part. It's the back. There's the other side. There's step flashing here. So step flashing goes down along the sides. And there's apron, remember, down in front and away, like your apron. Apron flashing, step flashing, right? And actually the skylight itself, this piece here would be considered a counter flashing. And there's the step flashing there and the counter flashing above. So at this chimney stack, there's an apron flashing and the step flashing and the backer flashing because it's not a very wide chimney stack. So those are the 10 steps. Those are the 10 technical steps on how to perform a roof inspection. If you do those 10 steps, you can't make a mistake. You'll hit everything. You can't possibly miss a major material defect if you do those 10 steps. But they are way beyond the standards of practice. Let's do another inspection, okay? We have been talking essentially for 45 minutes because we were down with the system. GoToWebinar kicked me off for about 15 minutes because I think we overloaded the system. We had 1,700 people register for the webinar. We have over 800 now. So we're doing really well with the system. If you want to stay, I'm going to do one more inspection. I'm getting feedback. Everyone's saying yes. Yes, apron. Nadia saying yes. Richard saying sure. All right, Matt. Okay, so everyone's saying yes. Should we go? Okay, so let's do another inspection. I'll stay here all night. Oh no. And do another inspection with you and answer your questions. And if I don't get to your questions, seriously, feel free to send them to me using that, type in your question control bar there, and I'll try to answer them. Otherwise, you go to the contact page like I showed you and email me, and I'll answer you individually. So another inspection, I did this one. I did all these inspections. I like to take pictures of all of the roof surfaces. The roof covering is what I'm inspecting. Actually, that's the component of the system, roof system, is the roof covering material. I want to identify the roof covering material for my client. This looks like an architectural shingle, but, well, I'll show it to you. It's really a 3-tab shingle. So the roof surface looks really good. 3-tab shingle. There's some cracking of the surface, right? So the material, if it's not cracked all the way through, I really don't call it out. If the granular surface is still intact, I really don't call it out. I'll call it out as a cosmetic defect or a cosmetic issue. Sorry, cosmetic issue that really just needs to be monitored. If there's a crack that goes through the material, then I'm going to identify it as a defect because we can't have that. We can't have cracked material. So it looks great. I mean, maybe a 5-year-old roof. There's some flashing there. There's a roof penetration, right? Penetration flashing. The vent stack, copper vent stack, is penetrating the roof covering materials. And the neoprene membrane is cracked around the vent pipe. So I took pictures of it. I mean, you could explain it to your client, but sometimes my clients just didn't understand what I was talking about in words. So pictures really helped me out. To communicate what I'm doing for my clients, pictures are worth literally 1,000 words. So that's an awesome thing there. That pretty much explains it. That is not supposed to be cracked like that. There's another vent pipe. There's a roof fan for ventilation, ventilating the attic space. Powered fan. The cap looks okay. Looks like it was installed well. The gutters, they seem to be clean. They got some really nice metal covers on there. Looks like it was performing well. I go down my way down. I work my way from top to bottom, thinking while I'm inspecting, how does water move? I go down to the second layer of roof covering, and I'm looking at that, I take pictures of all the vents. And while I'm there, I might as well take a picture of other things and look at other things while I'm there. Remember, every system is available to me. When I'm doing a roof inspection, I'm really also inspecting everything else that I can see, right? So at the window, there's a few things we'll comment upon. Shingles look great. Step flashing. Looks like the old stuff was removed by the roofer. Some black stuff there, some black tar and sealant, some gray paints and some gray sealant. But there's step flashing installed with every row. That's awesome. Well installed, looking good. You know, pictures like that also show that I'm doing due diligence. Look, I'm trying to find problems. You know, if the roof leaks after I leave, I'm going to go back to this picture and say, I really did my best to try to find problems for you, but I cannot predict weather events, especially roof leaks. Some problems with the siding here where the gutter meets the rake board. I mean, that's just a mess. So a bit of a concern there. And I'm taking a look again at other systems. That's the exterior. Taking a look at the exterior siding on the windows. There's the masonry chimney for the fireplace. Mortar joints need to be fixed. The cap, the crown, the masonry crown, the top part needs to be repaired. It's in really bad shape. I take a picture of the flue well beyond the standards of practice, but I do it because I have found big problems, major defects with flues. And I'm not a certified chimney sweep, but I am just looking for damage. And I can identify damage at this flue material. And damage is a hole or a very large open crack. And I can identify those things. I'm trained to do that. So I do it. This flashing is not installed very well. There's 3 different types of sealant here. There's light gray, medium gray, and dark gray. And I think there's even white. So I'm not all that happy about this flashing. One, remember there's step flashing. I'm going to look for step flashing. 2, I'm going to look for counter flashing. And when you have a masonry stack, you want to have that top edge of the counter flashing grooved into at least a ½ inch, maybe an inch, into the masonry material. Sometimes it's stepped. Sometimes they cut it and put it in there. This is not what's going on here. This step flashing and counter flashing is questionable. I don't know what's going on. There's a bunch of fasteners being nailed into the masonry. I don't think this is a good installation. So I'm going to have to remember this while I'm looking at the attic space. Take a look at all the downspouts. I'm thinking how water goes away from the house because it's part of the roof system, gutters, downspouts. This tree is in contact with the roof. Didn't realize it when I was up on the roof. I was really concerned about the roof covering materials. When I get down and I'm going around the house, I'm looking at all the trees that are within 20 feet. That was my rule, within 20 feet of the house. Downspouts. And it turns out there's water in the basement. So unfinished basement, foundation block, concrete block, wet in many areas. This is the concentrated area I wanted to show you. Got my moisture meter out. It rang and lit up. Now I'm in the attic. I pop into the attic space. First thing I see is an electrical wire. It's hanging out, it's loose, and it's live. So that's a hazard. And I guess they removed the house fan that used to be installed. So you can see the grates right there. This is the electrical wiring that's been done for the roof fan. Remember that fan that was on the roof, the mechanical vent? There it is there. It did not turn on for me. Something's wrong there. There's a storage in the attic space. There's a gable vent that seems to be clogged on the other side. It's thick built. It's not truss built like the other houses that we were looking at. So I'm looking at the structure. I'm looking for maybe sagging rafters or wood rot roof penetration, anything like that. There's the clogged vent. I don't see a whole lot wrong there. And there may be some water stains there, signs of prior water leaks. Approximate the insulation. It's about 5 inches. That's probably like a third of what's needed. Best practice. There's the missing house fan. So there was a house fan, and when you turn on the house fan, the louvered vents that were closed in the hallway ceiling open up and allow air to be pulled through the house, through windows in the basement, the cool basement in the summertime, and the exhaust outside. They removed the house fan, but they didn't insulate over here. So in the wintertime, this is essentially a huge hole. So it's incredible. It's just incredible, the amount of energy that is being lost. Again, pull down stairs, they're not energy efficient unless they're designed and insulated to be so. There's hardly any gaskets or insulation installed. Some storage, another chase that's open. So I'm looking down through the attic floor, through the insulation, and that's the second floor wall of the bathroom. And there's a cabinet installed in the wall of the bathroom, which is really nice, but the walls are not insulated. So there's a lot of heat escaping. I bet that bathroom is cold. I bet they're uncomfortable on the second floor. It seems like the heater never really heats up the second floor well enough. And the fuel oil is kind of high this winter. So there's a lot of things that can be fixed by simply sealing up the air leakage spot and insulating. A lot of open junction boxes in the attic. I really don't like that very much. A lot of wires hanging out. Attic insulation has been removed, and the dust looks like typical sign of a bathroom fan blowing against that. Now, when I came down, I take a look at every window, and I touch the outside, especially if it's an older house with wood sills. I touch the outside to look for wood rot. And remember, on the outside, I was looking at the window. When I was on the roof, I was looking at the outside of the window, and I saw that the capping was loose, probably allowing water to penetrate in. And for sure enough, well, that says it. There's 1,000 words. I stick my finger in the seal. This is the second. There's a lower roof attic space. It has a fan that's exhausting into the attic. And this is the chimney. This is the chimney area there. Remember, I was looking at the chimney from this second lower roof system, and there's a lot of watermarks all along here. And it's probably because of that flashing. Remember, the flashing wasn't installed very well at that chimney stack. So there's active roof leaks there. Insulation, we could do another inspection, but I'm going to do some questions. Tips to figure out the age of the roof. That's like very difficult. Sometimes the MLS, sometimes the seller will tell you. If it's a newer roof, the seller is glad to share that information, right? Because they just invested $15,000 into a new roof and now they're moving. So they want the buyer to know that. So really the seller, I kind of nudge the seller. When we talk to the seller, maybe to install a radon test prior to the home inspection, we'll bump into the seller and ask them questions. And even the seller's agent. So it's really that information that isn't written down, I try to get. And otherwise, it's really the feel of the material. After doing this for 10, 13 years, you can just tell by the feel of the material if they're adhering to each other, if they're not brittle, if they're not damaged, if the granular surface looks good, if the edges, especially of a 3-tab shingle, look good. It's probably a newer shingle roof. Really, they're not dated. Although there are some codes to the strip, the sealant strip on some shingle manufacturer, and we don't know. It's proprietary. Couple other things. Some people are leaving. That's fine. We have over 542 people now still with us. It's well after our 8 o'clock cutoff time, 8 o'clock for me, Mountain, 10 o'clock for Eastern. So if you want to leave, that's fine. I think I'm going to go through another inspection for those who want to stay. But if you wanted to leave, I wanted to make sure that you have the URL that you need. which is this one. It's nachi.org/webinar, and contact me at nachi.org/contact. There's my contact information. If you are a non-member and want to join InterNACHI, we are offering non-members who register and attend the webinar a 50% discount off your first year membership to InterNACHI. Regularly $499 for the first year. That would be 50% off of that price. So for any non-member who wants that discount, contact me and I'll sign you up. Otherwise, there are many people who are hanging in there, and I can see that a lot of people, you don't see what I'm seeing, but a lot of people are asking me to go one more. Do you want me to go one more? Cool, great. Yes, keep going. All right. So we'll do one more inspection, and that's all I have actually prepared. We have gone through 348 slides. So I did this inspection a while back. It's a townhouse as well, but it's a bit larger than the other one that we saw. And I go up on the roof, go up on every roof that I can safely, and I take a look. This is an older roof. Quickly, I could tell the shingles are older. They're starting to not lie down flat, and the granular surface is really worn. It's a brittle thing, and I see repairs. Like this one shingle tab tells me a lot that, okay, someone has replaced one shingle tab, which is great, but that shows me that maybe the age of the roof is in question. And now on the back side of the roof where the chimney is, there's missing shingles. So I want to identify those missing shingles. Someone's been up there patching it with silicones. That's not going to work. The shingle tabs are actually tearing and delaminating. That's an indication of very old age. Missing shingle tabs. There's the material of the shingle itself. Ridge vent, that's great. Roof penetrations look good. There's another roof penetration with the chimney stack. It penetrates through the roof. The capping all looks good. The siding, there's step flashing. Remember step flashing on the sides. I'm going to look at the apron flashing and the backer flashing. All that looks great. The siding material looks good. Whoop! It's 34 inches wide. This chimney stack is more than 30 inches wide. And when it's a 30-inch wide or greater chimney stack, it needs a cricket, not just a backer flashing like this one has. Backer flashing is for narrow chimney stacks. You don't need to build a cricket, which is like that. It's like a gable roof behind a chimney stack to divert water around. This chimney is so wide. It's almost 3 feet wide. It needs to divert water around, not just stop it with backer flashing. It needs to divert water around with a cricket. Wide chimneys need a cricket right there. Should be installed right there. It's like a little roof, like a gable roof, a dormer roof behind a chimney stack on the upper slope. Gutters look great, except where they're clogged. There's a vent at the soffit. And there's these little holes here. So in my area in Pennsylvania, this is from Pennsylvania, there's things called carpenter ants. There's big fat ants that chew into wood and put their little kids in there. And that's what these holes are from. Big fat bees, bumblebees, and there's actually one right there. And anything that destroys wood, I don't care what it is, I'm reporting it because I'm a home inspector. I have that privilege. That's in my standards. If it's damaging wood, I'm going to report on it. So we can talk about that later. I'm licensed in Pennsylvania for WDI inspection. These are the lower shingles. I really don't like these little tabs. When I installed roofs, we measured so this wouldn't happen. So you don't have a 3-inch tab on the edge of a rake edge because in a couple of years it's just going to fall off, and that's what's happening on this side. Then the siding, the flashing, and there's apron flashing. The counter, it should be counter flashing, apron flashing with counter flashing, and that counter flashing should be into a mortar joint. That would be nice. Downspouts are diverting water away. A truss-built roof. This looks like it's in great shape. I don't see anything wrong with this structure. Nothing cut, no watermarks. Looks pretty good. Even though there's a lot of shingles that need to be repaired, I don't see any roof leaks coming in. However, there's this little spot, and it must have been something from the past, right? There's a few shingles in the back there that blew off. It must have leaked through one of the nail penetrations. That's why we don't like to see exposed fasteners. Exposed fastener is a water entry point, and that's a fastener right there, and the roof was leaking right through that fastener hole. The fastener makes a hole through the shingle material, through the underlayment, through the substrate, and into the house. I also take a look at the bathroom exhaust. It's part of the attic system, which supports the roof system, right? And the bathroom fans were exhausting into the insulation. And this black stuff, again, is not mold. It's dirt, believe it or not. We call it filter glass because it filters the air. So when you see black stuff on fiberglass, look for air leakage. And this is air leakage, forced mechanical draft blowing into the filter glass, the fiberglass. And there's the bathroom fan there. It should exhaust outside. And then I saw this pipe running towards the eaves and a bunch of dust around it. And apparently it's the dryer vent. It never went outside. It was supposed to go somewhere, but they just stuck it up against the fascia board, and it's blowing insulation, dryer venting, right into the insulation and into the attic space. That's why you see in my pictures all this lint all over the place. And I realize what's going on. It's a hazard, really. So much lint being built up. And it's a fire hazard because dryers tend to catch on fire when the vent exhaust is clogged. There's ductwork, supply duct from the forced air furnace in the attic space. There's insulation. It should be at least R6 around the vent pipes and ductwork, but it needs to be sealed up airtight. Otherwise, you're going to lose your heated or conditioned air out into the attic space, which is essentially outside. So it needs to be sealed up nice, with mastic ideally, and insulated well and secured. These are not. These are losing energy and blowing conditioned air into the attic space. And the attic access was not insulated or sealed. So that's losing energy as well. All right, everybody, that's it. That's all I have for how to inspect a roof. I hope you learned something. I hope I did an okay job. Email me if you liked it or didn't like it. Give me some feedback. Here is the webinar recording is going to be up. Give me a couple days to put it up. It's at nachi.org/webinar. And our contact information for the entire staff of InterNACHI is nachi.org/contact. I'm Ben Gromyko from InterNACHI. Thank you so much. I apologize for the delay of the beginning, but I'm glad you all stuck with me. If you have any questions, feel free to send it to me. I'll try to email a reply back to all of your questions here, but there's a lot, so give me some time. And thank you, everybody. I'll see you next month for another free webinar from InterNACHI. Bye, y'all. Thank you.